This episode of Rick and Rick Rule the World is brought to you by Taskin, the first name in ultra stylish, premium quality travel gear, like the exquisitely designed Taskin One expandable backpack. With 9 practical variations, the Taskin One is always the right size for wherever life takes you next. Save 30% on your next purchase when you use the promo code R&R Take 30. That's R&R Take 30 at taskinsf.com.
In the conclusion of our 3-part TrendWatch 2022 episode, the Ricks jump headfirst into the Metaverse and what it means to marketers in the year ahead.
All right, my number 3 prediction is actually about Facebook or Meta or whatever you want to call it. And it's that marketers and companies are very excited about this idea of the metaverse. And I think in 2022, we're going to see them all rushing to stake a claim. They're going to try and get in there and figure out how to take advantage of this new thing called the metaverse and how they can build their brand and how they can get there before the competition and make it a strategic advantage for them. So, for years, you and I have been talking about VR, right? We've been talking about this is going to be the year for VR. This is going to be the year for AR. Well, you know what? It kind of happened and we didn't notice. Last year was the year from an article that I saw, I think it was on The Verge, Facebook or Meta or whatever they're called right now. They sold 10 million units last year.
Of the Oculus?
Yeah, they sold 10 million Oculuses.
10 million, really?
Isn't that crazy?
Well, I believe it because we were doing B2B promotions where you sign up and you're drawing or whatever and you'd be entered to win. And we were buying Quests out it was hard to find them.
Yeah. And so that's just Quest. And there's several other manufacturers out there. And so you got to imagine that number could be 12 or 15 million overall. And these aren't inexpensive devices, $300 at the low end,
easily.
I think $400, $500 at the high end, and if you go with, like the Steam version, I think it's like $1,500. So, I mean, these are fairly expensive devices and millions of them sold. And so, we know that Meta, Facebook, whatever you want to call them, is doubling down in 2022. You're seeing a ton of new things announced for it, whether it's, software, games, features, what have you. And we know that they're working on an Oculus 3, probably 2023, maybe sooner, according to some media sources, but, probably 2023. So like they're even working on, investing in the next generation. I forget what that company is in Florida who makes the augmented reality set. They just came out with their second version and it looks cool. It's like a steampunk version of an AR headset. And here's the punchline. And my dad went and bought one.
Oh.
When my dad buys one, it's mainstream, right?
Yeah. If your dad's buying it, that's pretty significant.
My baby boomer dad bought a VR headset and he loves it. And he gets all his friends to come over and they play the VR headset.
Wow.
So it's here. And so I think this next year is the year that companies and marketers are going to rush to stake claims and to try to make this theirs. I picture that, like any new trend, companies are going to be running to it. They're going to be buying up properties. You're going to see like some really cool companies. And I'm just going to make this up. Maybe it's Doritos or Vans or Coca-Cola or Pepsi or whomever. They're going to get in there and they're going to create these amazing experiences. And then we're going to see a ton of these small companies jump on board to try and use it as a strategic differentiator, to get attention bigger than who they really are. And in all of this, I think NFTs are related, and you're going to see NFTs being drugged right along into the metaverse. And so next year, you're going to see a ton of marketers and companies investing in the metaverse and NFTs.
Sure.
That's my
prediction. Yeah. No, it's definitely a place we'll be watching. And that ties in with my number 3, but maybe a slightly different perspective. So my number 3 is maybe more generally about marketing and ad tech, but probably with more of a grain of salt, maybe a very big grain of salt about the metaverse and Web3, at least for 2022. So this year, I think we're going to see exciting things like you're seeing more of these no-code options for marketing teams and agencies to kind of roll out things like mobile apps or sites or services faster without having to go through like endless IT cycles. So I think that's exciting. I do think we're going to finally see more brands, just as you said, start to experiment and maybe a few even score some big hits incorporating AR or especially VR. I guess I'm more cautiously optimistic maybe than you are. Look, I want that to be big, but you also have to appreciate my own personal experience in this, in that a lot of the things that folks are are saying about the next 5 and 10 years are things that I talked about in one of my books for 2020. I said that there will be hurdles and drawbacks along the way. I think some people call them winters. The developmental and adoption rates would fall away for these technologies for a while. And I did not anticipate just how painfully long the winter was going to be for VR and AR. I think that I would be thrilled if 2022 has as much activity in metaversal experiences and AR and VR as 2010 did. Because remember, back then, everyone poured into this stuff. And there were really exciting initiatives. But 2010 through 2013, they were all over the place. And I hope it gets that way again soon. The problem is that right now, things like Metaverse and Web3 are overhyped. I think you are going to see, we're starting to see it already, brands like Nike, Taco Bell, jumping into things like NFTs. But remember, when we get there, all of the same issues of the metaverse of a decade ago are still there. There has to be enough consumer momentum to populate worlds and spaces and experiences within metaverses. We need, like you and I talked about in a recent episode, that persistence, a universal standard for interoperability and permeability so that you can have mixed reality experiences. So damn, it's exciting. I'm just trying not to get my hopes up too much, but we are at an exciting inflection point.
Totally.
When we come back after this short break, we'll continue our conversation about some of the key trends to watch in 2022. So stay tuned. Hey, Rick and Rick Nation, don't forget to check out our website at rickandrick.com. It's double the Rick in just one click at rickandrick.com. And we are back. Rick and Rick Rule the World with Rick Matheson and Rick Wooten. And we're talking about some of the biggest trends to watch in 2022. I have a last prediction here relevant to what we're talking about. So I predict that Meta Platforms chief Mark Zuckerberg, he's going to read Snow Crash and he's going to fly into a fit of almost lifelike emotion over the fact that he has tried to change perceptions that he's a loony magnate who runs a digital media platform that's a threat to humanity by positioning himself as the real-life version of Snow Crash character L. Bob Rife, the loony magnate who runs a digital media platform that's a threat to humanity. And I predict that it's his wife Priscilla who's going to first realize that the light bulb goes on because she's going to see his reptilian eyelids start flitting like mad, and he's going to start to suppress dry heaves while mumbling about how electric hydrofoils prove that he's a manly bipedal humanoid in a voice that's eerily similar to Beaker from the Muppet Show. That's my prediction. That's going to have to wrap up our 3-part 2022 Trend Watch episode. Thank you for joining us. And you definitely don't want to miss our next episode because, believe it or not, it's time for the season 4 finale of the one show where everybody's name is Rick
and everybody rules the world.